This programme is powered by Hankook Tyres, Autosportinsurance.com, Valero Race and Rally Base Layers, and Magla. Create your own digital magazine. Welcome to Zandvoort for the first round of the GT and Prototype Challenge powered by Hankook, a brand new championship for Super GTs and powerful and nimble sports cars like the latest generation LMP3 and CN prototypes. In our programme today, we'll take a look at both one-hour races at the season opener. The 4.3-kilometre Zandvoort circuit is used throughout the year for track days, race days and motorsport events, but there's only one weekend a year when it's rammed with Max Verstappen fans. The undoubted star of the Jumbo Race Days weekend was Holland's latest Formula One superstar, the electrifying Max Verstappen, out to show his home crowd exactly what fast looks like. With a resurfaced track, the old outright lap record set by Luca Badoer in 2001 with the V10 Ferrari was crushed. Max beating it by a third of a second with a V8-powered Red Bull RB8. The GT and Prototype Challenge powered by Hankook was part of the Supercar Challenge last year, but it's now an independent championship with its own race events. Because of the huge differences in speed between the prototypes and the touring cars, that's absolutely the right decision. The fastest class is LMP3, including, of course, LMP3 cars from Ligier and Nissan. The Polish Inter-Europol competition, supported by German Kies Motorsport, have entered two Ligier JSP3s, the highly individual yellow and green colour scheme. This season they compete in the European Le Mans Series with an all-pro driver lineup, but for the GT and Prototype Challenge, this has been changed into a Pro-Am combination, so a professional driver and a gentleman in each car. Starting number 204, Germans Martin Hipper and Hans Laub. Their teammates in number 203, Polish pro Kuba Schmakowski and Germany's Wolfgang Jordan. And it's the latter combination that claim pole for the first race of the weekend. But this is a voyage into the unknown for everybody. So Kuba's not exactly sure how things will go.
I have no experience with the tires, to be honest. It's my first time with the Hankook tires. So I don't know how it will last during the distance. But I hope it will be fine. And this car is also very nice to drive. So the pace should not be a big problem, but we will try to fight with the Renault and with the other LMP3 from our team for a win. I hope we can make it.
Luxembourg Prime Racing is back with their Ginetta G57 LMP3 car, also supported this year by the Flemish 111 Racing. Luxembourg's Jean-Pierre Lecoeur is joined by compatriot Jean-Marc Uberrecken. Also in the LMP3 class, this Renault RS01. These cars were debuted in 2015 in the RS01 Trophy by Renault Sport, who then killed it at the end of 2016 and are now finding a new life in international racing. Renault Equipe Vainqueur has entered this machine for Rob Campos and Sander Van Es. A category below but almost as fast as LMP3 is the CN prototype class, and that includes the Norma M20 FC of reigning champions Tim Josen and Luc de Kock, run by Deldish Racing. And they'll try and extend their title for a third consecutive year and take the battle to the LMP3 machinery.
We willen dat wel, ja.
Well, that's our goal anyway, says Tim. The LMP3 cars, though, they've got almost 200 horsepower more than us. They weigh a bit more, and it's really a completely different kind of car. So we'll just have to see how it goes, really. Over a single lap, they're much quicker, but we'll see what their overall speed is like in the one-hour races. I guess we're going to find out. Of course, the speeds are very high, but they aren't going to take any unnecessary risks.
Het risico is eigenlijk nog niet aan de orde geweest. Echt niet.
Taking risks has never been part of my racing. The only risk there is with the really late braking. High-speed corners like Spa and Skyflag here, they can be taken without any problems. Your self-preservation makes you want to lift, but the really quick guys, Tim and Sam de Jonge, they say you can do it flat, and so you do. And really, there's no risk at all with these cars. One of their main rivals will be this Praga R1 Turbo run by VR Motorsport for Englishmen Tim Gray and Al Bolton. There are only 2 of these cars racing in Europe because the Slovak firm mainly exports them to the USA. The 2-litre turbo produces 370 horsepower. It weighs just 625 kilos. For the Norma M20 FC, that's around 260 horsepower and 570 kilos, so each car has its own pros and cons. Henk Taste returns to Super GT with his homebrewed Pumax RT and its Corvette V8 boasting 600 horsepower. Ranged against him are the Mosler MT900R of Barry van Elk and Dan Meyer, who's stepped up to Super GT with this JR Motorsport run Mercedes SLS GT3.
De eerste rondje de SLS was wel even lastig, want ik heb de laatste keer...
I had a few problems adjusting to the car in the first few laps. I drove this machine in the Winter Endurance Challenge earlier this year and did 2 rounds in the BMW M4 Silhouette, but after 10 minutes I really got the feel for it, and we put new tyres on. It's really a delight to drive. It feels like coming home. The SLS is a wonderful car. Qualifying was going great. The first couple of laps I was doing 1 minute 40.5s, 0.4s. Bascouten did some laps, even set a 39.3. So the car's great. I'm feeling confident, looking forward to a good racing weekend, and hope to get on the podium today and tomorrow. That would make me very happy. In the category for radical SR3s and non-turbocharged Praga R1s, Fiona James returns with the yellow and white Valero Praga. Former champion Kokopion is back as well with his trusty radical SR3. As is Belgian Wim Juris. Unfortunately, a broken gearbox brings his weekend to a premature end. And he's not the only one with problems. In practice, David Hauser's Ligier had its engine let go. After a long night, the Luxembourg Racing Experience team do manage to fix the problem and he will start. But of course, he missed out on qualifying. Beautiful afternoon for racing, track temperature 27 degrees. Still conditions means very little sand will be blown in off the neighbouring dunes for the afternoon encounter. Kuba Schmakovsky there, pole position in the Ligier JSP3, ahead of Sander van Ness, who shares the Renault RS01 with Rob Campus. Martin Hipper and Hans Laub's Ligier lining up third on the grid, ahead of Tim Josen, who shares the Norma with Luc de Kock. They are the best qualified in the CN class. Fifth on the grid, Jean-Pierre Lecoeur starts the Ginetta G57 LMP3 machine with Jean-Marc Uberrecken waiting to take over. And Tim Gray and Al Bolton, the 2 English drivers sharing their Praga R1 Turbo, line up in 6th. Then there are some visitors in the GT class. The familiar BMW M4 Silhouette for Bascouten and Koen Bokaerts, that's in 7th on the grid, ahead of Super GT driver Dan Meyer in the Mercedes SLS GT3. JR Motorsport running that machine. 10th on the grid is Kokopion, heading up the SR3 category after qualifying, while rival Fiona James has to start at the back of the field after engine problems in qualifying. The team somehow, though, have produced her a grid boy. Full marks. Field rolling away, led by the yellow and green Ligier JSP3, Kuba Schmakovsky. Sander van Ness alongside in the Renault RS01. We're with Martin Hipper in the second of the Ligiers, third on the grid alongside Tim Josen in the open Norma, the red and white machine. Great variety of shapes and noises from these cars. Sander van Ness in that Renault, a former multiple Dutch touring car and single make champion. Lights are on. And away we go. Bit of an eager start for Kuba Schmakovsky. He's got a lighter but less powerful Ligier looking down into the first corner. Kuba Schmakovsky holds off Sander van Ness and Martin Hipper. Tim Josen with a little late lunge gets back up into 4th position with Sander van Ness in the Renault, 2nd spot. And this car with over 500 horsepower weighs around 1,100 kilos. Nearly 100 horsepower more than the Ligier, but the Ligier weighs around 900 kilos. So this is going to be a real balance of performance. 5th place is the blue Praga R1 Turbo started by Tim Gray. He got ahead of Jean-Pierre Lecoeur's Ginetta G57. Bascouten, the leading GT car in the BMW M4 Silhouette, there he is. behind the Mercedes SLS of Dan Meyer, so Meyer got in front of him down into Tarzan first time round. There's the third place car, 204 Martin Hipper, kicking up the dust on the exit. Sander Van Ness in the Renault, in the Pumax with Henk Tace even wider out of the final corner, goodness. Trans Am Euro Racing looking worried. They can't race driver Amory Bonduelle on the radio. She hasn't come by. Looks like the car is just rolling around at idle, so no throttle. There's Stefan Cox, Peter Cox's daughter, who races Acura GT3s in the US. Waiting for her teammate to come round, but their race is over. Leaders battling, Ligier LMP3 versus RS01 Renault. The Renault in the sandwich of the two into Europol machines. And they are easing away from the battle for fourth. It's the two Tims. Tim Josen in front of us as we ride with Tim Gray in the Praga R1 Turbo. Really good run out of the Arie Luyendyk corner, and he is going to go through. No change in front. Kuba Schmakowski from Sander Van Ness and Martin Hipper in third position. But Tim Gray from sixth on the grid now up to fourth position, making great inroads with that Praga R1 Turbo. Sander Van Ness, meanwhile, piling the pressure on the race leader, Kuba Schmakowski. On board in third with Martin Hipper, and the pressure pays off. Schmakowski drifts out a little wide. Sander Van Ness moves through into the lead in the Renault RS01. And now that he's got in front, can he start escaping from the Ligier duo? Looked as though Schmakowski was holding him up, but maybe only on certain parts of the circuit. Super GT leader is Dan Meyer in the silver Mercedes, Henk Tace right behind in the Pumax RT, and they both jumped past Schouten in that BMW M4 Silhouette that was 7th on the grid. Henk Tace, this car a combination of Viper and Corvette, with the LS7 V8 motor up front, 600 horsepower. It's taken a couple of years for Henk Tace to really get the car working to his liking, but now it is all over the back of the AMG GT3 of Dan Meyer and cuts to the inside. Good work by Henk Tace. Pressure working. He moves into the lead of Super GT, and right behind them, Bas Schouten in the first of the GT cars. On board again with Martin Hipper, third spot. You can see the Renault just starting to stretch its legs ahead of the LMP3 Ligiers. Don't forget, of course, the 1 hour race with mandatory pit stops. And again, Schmakowski goes a little wide, and through goes Martin Hipper. Kuba Schmakowski struggling a couple of times with that Ligier LMP3, and he's now down from first to third spot. And suddenly it looks as though Martin Hipper has got the speed all over the back of the Renault RS01 of Sander Van Ness. Was Hipper playing himself in gently in the opening couple of laps to be kind to the tyres? Don't forget, these Ligier drivers have never raced on the Hankook before. They don't really know what it's going to do as the stint and the race progresses. So being cautious early on, just follow my leader, that might have been a very good way of going about it. Sander Van Ness, the hunter, is now the hunted in that Renault RS01. Martin Hipper looking for a way around the outside there. Having to go a little bit the long way round, wasn't going to work. Martin Hipper looking to make all the moves now. Super GT leader Henk Tace pulling away from the white and black Mercedes of Dan Meyer, who has got right behind him David HAUSER, the Ligier with problems that didn't do qualifying. HAUSER never raced at Zandvoort before, so been quite surprised by how much lateral G there is with all the corners here constantly pushing you from one side to another. Just two straights on the meandering Zandvoort circuit. And right behind now is the GT Racing BMW M4 Silhouette. So Bas Schouten around the outside of Dan Meyer. Meyer regularly racing a GT class Porsche. So this SLS GT3 new to him. Change for 7th place. David HAUSER from the back of the grid goes around Henk Tace in front of the Super GT leader, and he is setting times now very close to the race leaders. Speaking of whom, here is Martin Hipper in 2nd place. Sander Van Ness still just in front in the Renault RS01, but he is not escaping at all. It'll be interesting to see how each car treats its tyres and how their grip levels progress through this first 1 hour race of the season. Oh, Hipper down the inside and through he goes. The heavier Renault couldn't hold that tight line. Kuba Śmiechowski now right back with them. And he is also looking to try and find a way by the RS01, the early race leader. Started on pole position. 1:34.0 was the pole lap from Śmiechowski, 1:34.1 from the RS01, so they're very well balanced in terms of pace. And Śmiechowski nearly got inside Sander van Ness, looking for another chance to do so. The high-speed sweeps at the end of the lap might present him a run down the straight. Team boss Franz Verschuur looks worried, so does Rob Campus. He's new to this car. Helpless to do much about it at this stage. Van Ness still hanging on to second place, ahead of Śmiechowski. And Martin Hipper easing away out front. Śmiechowski now certain that he's got what it takes in the tightest, twistier stuff, but he's got to get the Renault offline to be able to capitalise. Trying to go the long way round the outside. Renault's power telling there. The RS01 with more weight but more horsepower. You can see that Śmiechowski clearly thinks he has got the quicker car. All over the back of the Renault in just about every corner. Catching is one thing, getting past is another though. And Sander van Ness has already worked out where his weak spots are compared to the Ligiers. Onto the front straight we come again. Śmiechowski is close. Is he close enough? No. Look at the way the Renault's horsepower just keeps it out of harm's reach. Van Ness covers the inside line into Tarzan. Either line works. Śmiechowski doesn't quite have the aero grip to go the long way round the outside and is still stuck in third. Well, this Renault RS01 won the championship last year with Peter Skotthorst at the wheel, so it's got winning pedigree, but at the moment this battle is allowing Martin Hipper to canter away out front. Sander van Ness worries a little less about that than whether Śmiechowski can get by him though, I fancy. Again, defensive line from the Renault driver, and Śmiechowski, can he go outside, inside? He's just about got the grip, yes he does. Sander van Ness wisely giving him racing room, no point in damaging the car. So team 1-2, Kees Motorsport, Michael Kees looking happy. Into the pits, Sander van Ness will hand over the Renault to Rob Campus. Mandatory stop for a minute between the 25th and 35th minute of this 1 hour race.
Ja, was spannend. Ze hadden iets meer tijd nodig om de banden
Very exciting, says Sander. Took them some time to get heat into their tyres because they're so much lighter. I had the opposite thing after 6 or 7 laps. They started to go off. Halfway through the stint, it was getting pretty intense. I had to defend hard to maintain the lead, but I couldn't keep them behind me. Rob's in the car now. Yesterday we spotted their gentleman drivers aren't as quick as Rob, so things are looking promising for us right now. Mandatory pit stop 2 for Kuba Śmiechowski to hand over to Wolfgang Jordan. Clean of the screen as well, make sure that the new driver has as good visibility as he can manage. So how was that first stint for the pole?
We had some problems with the power steering, so I lost some positions. Then I tried to push as much as I could to get them back. I managed to get one back, and the other one managed to get my colleague back. But Renault jumped in front of us. We'll see. It's not over yet. Lots of things can happen, but the way it looks right now, we could finish at second place. So
CN class leader Tim Gray in the turbocharged Praga R1, and the Brit well clear of the Deldish Racing Norma. Pit stop for Tim Joosten in the Norma to hand over to teammate Luc de Kock. Praga driver was just too quick for me, said Tim. Simple as that, I'm afraid. At the start he got by me. I was able to hang on for 2 or 3 corners, but then he was off and away. So I was no match for him. We do think that we can improve a few things in the setup to make our car quicker for tomorrow's race, but we'll still have a hard time keeping up with them. They're just too quick. Tim Gray looking worried after the pit stops. Al Bolton, who took over, comes back in. And the race is over early for the VR Motorsport crew.
Just lost brakes. It's a real shame, it's run faultlessly for test days, hours now, it's pounding rain, but just last couple of laps,
just couldn't slow the car down. I seemed to be braking the same place as yesterday, but just wasn't slowing down. Saw a puff of smoke from the back. On that last lap, the pedal just almost hit the floor and I was pumping up because you're going pretty quick down there. So I had to bring it in. It's not safe to drive it like that, but I think we've done a brake line, so at least we know what it is.
Kokopian leading SR3 after Fiona James had to park her Praga with more engine woes. Race leading battle, Hans Laub and Wolfgang Jordan being caught fast by Rob Campus in the Renault RS01. So the Ligier's 1-2. On board with Jordan. Looking for a little gap down the inside. That's very close. Shouldn't be bumping into your teammate, and the Renault is right there to take advantage. Rob Campus trying to get through. He's up to second place already. Looking to squeeze past Wolfgang Jordan. Gets a good run onto the straight. He'll tuck into the slipstream and then try and use the greater power of the Renault to come alongside, and he's done enough into Tarzan. Through he goes to take the lead as Barry Van Elk comes out of the pits in the Mosler. Here is Dan Meyer leading the Super GT class. He's driving solo, so is Henk Thees in the Pumax, who is right on his heels, and Barry Van Elk in the Mosler, who lies in third place. Ooh! Trouble for Henk Thees. Again, off track into the gravel. Doesn't hit anything. But as he gets to Tarzan, he almost goes off on his own gravel. Plus the door is now sprung open, and he has to go into the pits to get that sorted. Barry Van Elk's race ends in the gravel trap at Skyflak for the most bizarre of reasons. Last few laps I thought one of the tyres had blown. Turned out a wheel rim had been sliced in half. Same thing happened 3 years ago at Zandvoort, same corner. A stone got stuck between the rim and the brake caliper. And that stone acted like a machine tool and just sliced the edge clean off the wheel. Remarkable. Closing stages battle for second place. Wolfgang Jordan being dive bombed by David Hauser, driving solo in his Ligier. But it's Rob Campus and Sander Van Es who claim victory in the Renault RS01. First to the checkered flag.
We did it!
So the Renault duo hold off 3 Ligiers. Luc de Kock and Tim Jussen win their class. Dan Meyer in GT, Kokopian in SR3. And the BMW M4 wins in the GT class.
Nou, we hadden de rondetijden van die andere teams gezien.
We've been looking at the lap times of our rivals. We noticed the difference between the pro and the amateurs in the same car was around 4 seconds a lap. Of course, I'm also slower than Sander. He's a bit of a racing veteran, but not losing more than a second a lap on him is pretty good. And that means I was basically 3 seconds quicker than their gentleman drivers in the Ligier. I also knew that Sander could keep up with the Ligier pros, guys who are doing the European Le Mans Series, and that means that I could finish the job after the pit stops, so I could make up for any lost ground before the pit stops. But that means quite a lot of pressure. You still have to go out and do it, and it is my first time in the car. Here are the CN prototype class winners, Tim Jussen and Luc de Kock, and the SR3 winner, Kokopian, all driving open sports cars. GT winners Bas Schouten and Koen Bokaerts, who lost a few spots after a puncture. Art Bosman takes second in GT. Winner in Super GT, Dan Meyer. First race for him in the GT and Prototype Challenge.
Rembalans stond niet helemaal goed.
Wasn't happy with the brake balance. I made a few adjustments in the opening stages and that improved things a bit, but it was too late to keep up with Henk Thees. After the pit stops, my pace was much better. The team dropped the tyre pressure a bit and I was able to do 141s. Henk even did a 140 and I was doing low 141s, so that was good. And then Henk lost the car in the Lyondike corner when he was chasing me. I saw a big cloud of dust behind. I thought he'd crashed. Luckily, he didn't have any major damage, still finished in second. GT boys finished first in their class, so I'm very happy. Hoping for another great race tomorrow, and we'll aim for the podium again. Stay with us to find out what happens in race 2, where things all get a little fruity. This programme is powered by Hankook Tyres, Autosportinsurance.com, Valero Race and Rally Base Layers, and Magla. Create your own digital magazine. Welcome back to the Jumbo Race Days, driven by Max Verstappen. This event drove huge crowds into packed grandstands on a sunny Zandvoort circuit. Over 100,000 fans waited to see their Formula One hero in action. So a fantastic first weekend setting for the GT and Prototype Challenge powered by Hankook. The launch of a new championship with the LMP3s like Nissan and Ligier at the front, but CM prototypes like the Norma, Praga R1 Turbo of English drivers Al Bolton and Tim Gray, who struggled with brake problems in Saturday's race. Problems in the GT class for Koen Burkhardt and Bas Schouten on the dummy grid of race 2. Something wrong with the steering. JR Motorsport springing into action. Do get it sorted. Also in the GT class is this unique HAU Racing TA2, a car that will be part of a separate Cup Championship this season. It's the first shakedown for the car, behind the wheel Frenchman Omri Bondel and Dutchwoman Stefan Cox. Legend Peter Cox's daughter currently races in the US, and she said it's a last-minute deal getting involved with this. Got a call on Thursday evening to say that I'll be in the car on Friday morning. It's great fun to be able to do this. My main goal is to try and learn as much as possible because everything about the car is brand new to me. Characteristics are completely different from the cars that I normally drive. But I think driving as many cars as possible is always a good thing. Helps you improve yourself as a driver. Really glad to be invited by the team to come to one of the biggest crowds in racing this year in the Netherlands. In front of the huge crowd then, Sander van Ness is the man on pole position for race 2, and the qualifying grid here set by the second best lap time set by each car. Alongside him, the Ligier JSP3, car number 203, Kuba Schmakovsky. He will share with Wolfgang Jordan. Sander van Ness hands over the Renault to Rob Campus, as in race 1. 204, Martin Hipper starts with Hans Laub taking over, and Tim Josen and his teammate Luc de Kock line up in 4th place on the grid in their CN class Norma. Jean-Pierre Leclerc and Jean-Marc Uberbrecken in their Ginetta G57 are in 5th place, ahead of Al Bolton, who starts from Tim Gray in the Praga. Bas Schouten, Koen Burkhardt in the GT pole. Dan Myers, Mercedes, the Super GT pole. Kokupi on pole for Radical SR3. Henk Tace starting at the back, by the way, after a pit lane penalty from race 1. So 100,000 fans crowding around the sand dunes and the grandstands of Zandvoort, ready to go for the start of the second race. Sander van Ness in the Renault Sport RS01, pacing the field, the black and yellow car, and then the two green and yellow Ligier LMP3s, Kuba Schmakovsky and Martin Hipper. On board with Bas Schouten, the BMW M4 Silhouette. Away we go. There's Dan Myers, Mercedes in front. Dan Meyer getting the jump on Bas Schouten as Sander van Ness takes the lead. Kuba Schmakovsky trying to go the long way round the outside with the red mirrors on the green and yellow car, and off goes Tim Josen. A very gravelly run out to Tarzan. He's going very slowly. Dan Meyer's gone by, so too Bas Schouten, as you saw from the rear view of Meyer's car. And then Kokopion and the rest of the field sweeping through, and already Henk Tace making up spots in the Pumax RT. There's Kokopion in the silver car with the red highlights. Dan Meyer in the Mercedes, who's right up behind Al Bolton's Praga R1 Turbo. The Praga looks like it's a 3/5 scale model in front of the massive Mercedes. Mercedes with a lot more horsepower but a lot more weight to get slowed down. Sander van Ness, the race leader, then Kuba Schmakovsky and Martin Hipper ahead of Jean-Pierre Leclerc in the black Ginetta, then Al Bolton in the Praga. He's got Dan Myers' Mercedes right behind. That's the battle for 6th position. And again, the Mercedes down the inside. And this time, through he goes. Al Bolton has to give him racing room. The delayed Tim Josen there in the red and white open Norma M20 FC. He's all over the back of the Praga. And they are in the same class. The Praga Turbo in with the CNs. And the CN car goes through. And right behind is the best of the GT runners. Bas Schouten in the BMW M4 Silhouette. So looking back from our Super GT class pole sitter Dan Meyer. Lunge down the inside from Tim Josen, and he gets by, and that will put him up to 5th place, at least temporarily. And then all of that AMG horsepower brings the Mercedes alongside. But again, you see how early Dan Meyer has to brake compared to the much lighter Norma. It's got maybe 2/3 of the horsepower of the Mercedes. Kokopian battling with David HAUSER, who didn't do qualifying, so had to start at the back of both races. But he gets by our SR3 leader, Kokopian. Race leader Sander Van Ness now easing away from Kuba Schmitkowski. Martin Hipper there with the yellow mirrors on his green and yellow Ligier. On board with Dan Meyer. Ooh, drifting out very wide across the gravel and just avoids the barriers. Oh, that was close though. Now, what sort of problem has Dan Meyer got in the Mercedes? Everybody's streaming by.
We gaan Hunsrug op richting Slotenmaker.
I was at the Hunsrug heading towards Slotenmaker on lap 5 or 6. Not happy with the brake balance, make a bit of an adjustment, but I made a driving error as well and went off the road at high speed. I was really afraid I was going to hit the barriers. I was doing over 200 kilometers an hour. Had two choices really, one to try and correct it and risk hitting the wall, and the other was just to go straight through the gravel trap. And I opted for that. It was a bit Dukes of Hazzard. I got launched in the air, maybe half a metre, and then I was driving the most expensive lawnmower ever. Grass wasn't a problem, but a bit of the splitter was broken and the car was really handling badly, especially over 200 Ks, so impossible to drive. I've tried to do another lap, but we're calling it a day. There's not much to gain and an awful lot to lose. Not the only early retirement either. Barry van Elk coming in after the first lap. Chronic vibration under braking and the team unable to sort it out. Battle for third in the GT class. Amaury Bonduelle took it in the Mustang-based HAU Racing Trans Am car, but Turkish driver Cengiz Olguzan with his Porsche got back again at Hugenholtz. Moments later, the safety car is out, and that's because Al Bolton's Praga is in the gravel trap at the Masters corner. Co-driver Tim Gray and the VR team all looking worried as they wait for news of their colleague. He does eventually return to the pit lane after being dragged out of the gravel, and after a quick confirmation that he thinks the car's okay, they continue with the race. Ready to go green once more, and Bert Moritz in the Marcus Mantis right behind the race leader, but in front of the other Ligier. So this is a great chance now for Sander Van Ness to run away as they go green. You're not allowed to pass before the start-finish line, but Jean-Pierre Leclerc flies by Martin Hipper. Long before that for third place. David HAUSER does the same, coming up from behind. So Hipper shuffled illegally down the order from third to fifth position. Well, they're all working their way past the Marcus Mantis now, but the damage has been done. On board with David HAUSER, in front of him is Jean-Pierre Leclerc, and surely they're going to get a penalty. David Hipper, stuck behind them though, is losing ground to the leaders. And worse is yet to come, because after only a few corners of green flag racing, the safety car is scrambled once more. Amaury Bonduelle discovering just how deep the Zandvoort gravel is, and here's why. Coming down into Tarzan, 3 cars dicing in front of him, and there is contact. He has to go into the gravel to avoid the stationary machinery. And the replay from Kokopian as he gets T-boned by Cengiz Olguzan's Porsche. An ambitious move by the Turk.
Ik rem natuurlijk heel laat.
I can brake very late. Porsche behind thought he could brake even later, but he crashed right into me. I'm afraid my little car is too badly damaged at the rear to continue. It's a shame. Everything was looking good. I was staying close to the guys in front, and it's the end of my race. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a shame. Porsche comes in for its mandatory stop with clear damage at the front end, but luckily the cooling isn't affected, so Frenchman Alexandre Joannem can take over to carry on in the race.
What happened at the restart? I didn't see the radical next to the Porsche, so I hit him. So I overtook the Porsche from inside, and I didn't know there was a radical, the very small car, so I hit him unintentionally.
Ready to go green again, Sander Van Ness ahead of Kuba Schmitkowski, Jean-Pierre Leclerc and David HAUSER in the red and black car there, Martin Hipper and Tim Joosen, the open machine ahead of Henk Thees leading in Super GT. And again, we go green. The blue Praga R1 several laps down, trying to stay out of the way on the inside line. And there is enough room in Tarzan for several racing lines, and they go through safely. Martin Hipper chasing the cars in front. David Hauser, red, white and black Ligier. And in front of him, the black Ginetta of Jean-Pierre Leclerc. Both should get a penalty for jumping the first restart. But at the moment, they're in front of Martin Hipper, and the battle continues at the top of the field. This programme is powered by Hankook Tyres, Autosportinsurance.com, Valero Race and Rally Base Layers, and Magla. Create your own digital magazine. Welcome back to Zandvoort for the first race weekend of the GT and Prototype Challenge powered by Hankook, a brand new championship for Super GT cars and light nimble sports cars like LMP3s and CN prototypes. Time now to get back to the Race 2 action. Second restart, Sander Van Ness and Kuba Schmakovsky jumping away. Jean-Pierre Leclerc and David Hauser next up. They jump the start to get in front of the green and yellow car of Martin Hipper. And the stewards can't possibly fail to have noticed that. Kim Yosen right behind, leading the class CN in his red and white Norma. And Martin Hipper frustrated to be held up behind the two Q jumpers. And there is Jean-Pierre Leclerc, there is David Hauser. Martin Hipper losing ground to his teammate Kuba Schimkowski and to race leader Sander Van Ness, and waiting for the stewards to apply what surely must come in terms of penalties for the cars in front. Taking a look down the inside of David Hauser, taking matters into his own hands, Martin Hipper moves up quickly to fourth place. And that will soon become third position as Jean-Pierre Leclerc is handed a drive-through penalty, and David Hauser will come through for a similar penalty later on. So back to the race leaders, Sander Van Ness, Kuba Schimkowski. This battle has continued so far through not one but two safety car periods, and it is about to be held up again. The Praga R1 in the gravel, and that will bring out the safety car.
Yeah, it was going all right. And then I don't know, something happened coming through into that. It was sort of really fast, left-right after Tarzan. The rear just sort of let go on me. And it's one of those occasions when everything kind of slows down. I was trying to steer away from the barrier, but it just kind of caught the rear. So we don't know what it is yet. We'll have a look at the video and figure out what happened. But I don't think a lot of cars finished, did they?
The vast crowd then robbed of a great lead battle as the first cars come in for their mandatory pit stops under the safety car. Martin Hipper loses little time to the Renault and to his teammate, but the safety car does not go as planned.
Now it looks not really good. Then our pit stop was a bit short, and now we got a drive-through penalty. So I think that's not a good result anymore possible.
And that leaves the door open for this car, the Ginetta of Jean-Pierre Leclerc and teammate Jean-Marc Uberek. Neither driver is as quick as the pros, but they're both quicker than the gentleman drivers in the other machines, and that gives them a good podium shot despite that jump start and drive-through penalty. Luc de Kock ready to head out for his stint. With the Praga R1 Turbo out of the race, they could add race 2 victory to their race 1 win at Zandvoort. Mandatory 1-minute pit stops. If you leave too early, you serve a drive-through. Here comes Hans Laub to serve his. The Praga R1 Turbo finally recovered from the gravel and out of the way, and so we are ready to go green flag racing once more. Third restart for Rob Campus in the Renault RS01, pulling away from the black car of Jean-Marc Uberek and David Hauser. Red, white and black Ligier in third. So Renault leads Ginetta, leads Ligier down into Tarzan. The Renault again defensive. Jean-Marc Uberek can't find a way around the outside. Whoa, and suddenly trouble. The Renault spins on the exit and into the barriers. Looks like it's damaged. Leaders go through. Jean-Marc Uberek and David HAUSER both skating out wide there, though. Slippery surface flags are down and the safety car is back out. Well, let's take a look at what happens. On board with Rob Campus, turns in. All looks okay so far. On the curbs, no. Spins on the track. And there is oil down, I think. Take a look again from the other angle into Tarzan. No. Odd steering angles, and then suddenly the car just snaps away and hits hard on the driver's side. The furrow-browed team boss Frans Verschoor, and he and teammate Sander van Es will worry about the state of Rob Campus till he is back and out of the car. Well, there he is with the rescue workers. I think I had a pretty good clean exit out of Tarzan. Suddenly the rear snapped away, ended up hitting the wall pretty hard. Then the medical car took me back to the pits. I saw most of the track was covered in oil on the racing line. And there weren't any warning flags when I arrived at the oil. And as the race leader, of course, you arrive at the things that the back markers leave behind them. The culprit was just in front of me, so it's not really the marshal's fault. They hadn't spotted it. I'm actually glad it happened in Tarzan and not in Skyflak, because you're really on the limit there and it would have been a bigger accident. The culprit comes in, it's Stefan Cox in the HAU Racing TA2. She parks the car in pit lane in the 4th safety car period. The replay here shows that she runs wide on the exit of the chicane, and that run over the curbs caused a lot more damage. Front splitter came loose after the incident and some bodywork along with it, and that damaged the coolers. Radio was a problem, so I didn't know I had an issue. We don't have onboard radio. I didn't see anything wrong. Then I saw smoke after a couple of laps, so I took a shortcut and came straight back to the pits. With oil down everywhere, there's no option but to leave the safety car out until the end of the race. Having got by the Ginetta just before the safety car, it is victory for David HAUSER in the Ligier. He is second in race 1, victorious in race 2, an amazing performance after he didn't get to qualify at all on Friday because of engine problems.
Everything was in 2 corners because there was suddenly oil on the track everywhere, and the second position and me saw the first one go into the rail, and then 1 corner further I knew it was going to be safety car soon, so I needed to overtake the guy in the corner now because otherwise it was a safety car. And then I overtook him, and then 100 meters afterwards it was safety car, and I thought, I think I overtook him before the safety car, I think I overtook him before, and then they said, it's okay. So I thought, okay, then it's okay. And then it was the end of the race, so really happy with the result, and thanks to so much to my team because they did a great job.
Almost as happy and also adding victory in race 2 to second place in race 1 is Super GT's Henk Thees, while CN winners in race 1 Tim Joosten and Luc de Kock double up in race 2.
Het was heel moeilijk. Ik denk dat het de combinatie is van de rubber van de Formule 1.
It was a really tough race, says Henk. Combination of several things, probably including the Formula 1 car rubber on the track. There was no grip at all. Had a scary moment going uphill to Skyflak. The car got away from me. I thought I was going to end up in the guardrail, and when I didn't, really counted my blessings. From the back of the grid to first in class in front of such a huge crowd, I'm really happy. Max Verstappen's the youngest Formula 1 driver ever. I'm the oldest winner today. Doesn't get any better than this. Today is my day.
De eerste ronde was niet zo goed voor mij.
First lap wasn't as good as I thought it would be, said Tim Joosten. I lost some time, but thanks to the safety car I caught the leaders. The LMP3 in front of me were having a tough battle, so I was able to stay close to them. Then we had another safety car. We were still close to the leaders when we came into the pit stops, and then Luke finished the job off perfectly. GT Porsche battle behind is Art Bosman, chasing Alexander Jouanem, but in fact Jouanem is a lap down. Bosman was second in the GT category in his Porsche. Victory again going to the BMW M4 silhouette of Bas Schouten and Koen Bokaert. It's almost like everybody is driving extra special in front of such a huge crowd. I think it's fantastic. Over 100,000 visitors this weekend. Start was great. We were able to stay up with the Super GT class with every restart. I tried to get by Dan Meyer, but he was just too quick. But I had a good stint. Bas took over in the pit stops. We finished 4th overall. Pretty impressive for a GT car. And that's it for the opening weekend at a heaving Zandvoort. Next time out at Spa-Francorchamps in early June and the Spa Euro races. And of course, we will see you there. This programme is powered by Hankook Tyres, Autosportinsurance.com, Valero Race and Rally Base Layers, and Magla. Create your own digital magazine.